Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you and thank you all for attending this incredibly important event discussing the legal implications of the global SUMUD Flotilla. This movement, its participants and supporters are a beacon of hope and humanity in a time where many choose to turn a blind eye to the genocide happening in Gaza. I'm incredibly excited to be presenting our speakers today, and we'll be starting with some opening speeches. I'd like to welcome Hatem Zhu to the stage, who will be speaking for 10 minutes. Thank you.
Un, deux, un, deux, un, deux, test, un, deux, un, deux, un, deux, un, deux, test. Un, deux, un, deux, un, deux, test, un, deux, un, deux, un, deux. شكرا. لا 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 هذا لا لا لا.
All right, we'll be starting in another 2 minutes. And again, I want to welcome Hatem Zhu to.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. مرحبا بكم. أهلا وسهلا بكم جميعا في تونس. أولا تونس الخضراء، أرض النضال وأرض الشهداء كذلك، وأرض الوفاء للقضايا العادلة. مرحبا بكل الضيوف من كل مكان، ولكن سامحوني باش نرحب أولا بالسيد عميد كلية الحقوق والعلوم السياسية بتونس، السيد الأمين العام المساعد للاتحاد العام التونسي للشغل، وبضيوفنا الكرام اللي جاونا من كل أنحاء العالم، من اسبانيا، من الولايات المتحدة، من تركيا، ما نحبش ننسى من جميع الاتحاد الأوروبي، دول الاتحاد الأوروبي، من الدول العربية. مرحبا بكم، شرفتونا في هذا اللقاء، في هذه الندوة الأكاديمية الداعمة لغزة والداعمة لأسطول الصمود. رحب زميلاتي وزملائي المحامين الحاضرين بيننا وكافة المناضلين والمناضلات من كل مكان. شوف حتى بعض أشقائنا وممثلي فلسطين كذلك حاضرين بيننا، فرحبا بهم، أهلا وسهلا. شرفتونا في هذا اللقاء الهام والهام جدا في هذه الندوة الأكاديمية، واحنا سعداء حقيقة باستقبالكم اليوم في تونس وفي مقرات الهيئة الوطنية للمحامين بتونس، اللي اليوم نظم هذا اللقاء بالشراكة مع منظمي هذا اللقاء وكذلك داعمي أسطول الصمود البحري. فمرحبا بكم مرة أخرى في تونس، كل الشرف. وإن شاء الله هذه الندوة تميط اللثام على الوضع الإنساني الصعب والكارثي الذي يعيشه أهالينا في غزة، وعلى القانون الدولي والقانون الدولي الإنساني خاصة المنطبق على مثل هذه الوضعية. فأهالينا في غزة وفي كامل فلسطين الحقيقة يعيشون اليوم تحت الدمار الشامل وتحت الإبادة الجماعية وتحت جميع أنواع الأسلحة المحرمة دوليا في تقتيل ويعني حصار ومحاولة تجويع وتهجير تخرق كل القوانين الدولية وحتى الأخلاق الإنسانية والقيم الإنسانية التي جبلنا عليها. فمن دور الهيئة الوطنية للمحامين بتونس وكافة، وهي شريكة في الحقيقة مع بقية مكونات المجتمع في تونس في تنسيقية هامة لدعم أهالينا في غزة، ونحييهم الكل. ولكن المحاماة التونسية ستبقى وكانت دائما وستبقى وفية للحق الفلسطيني، أولا في تحرير واسترجاع أرضه وعاصمتها القدس، وكذلك في الدفاع عن حقه في إقامة هذه الدولة وفي العيش بسلام. وكذلك اليوم أكيد أنه من خيرة الأساتذة في القانون الدولي الحاضرين بيننا اللي نحييهم ونشكرهم على هذا الحضور وعلى هذا الفرصة التي سنحت لنا كما قلت إماطة اللثام على الوضع وعلى القانون الدولي المنطبق والقانون الدولي الإنساني. فنحن اليوم من خلال دعمنا بهذه الندوة الأكاديمية العلمية، ولكنها كذلك هي نوع من أنواع مساعدة ودعم كل المبادرات النضالية لكسر هذا الحصار وكسر هذه آلة القمع التي يمارسها الكيان الصهيوني الغاصب لأرض فلسطين، وكذلك هذا الكيان الذي حقيقة لم يشبع بالدماء يوميا. حتى المساعدات، عند توصيل المساعدات على قلتها فإنه يتم تقتيل كل الفلسطينيين الذين يقفون لاستقبال هذه المساعدات. واليوم نرى حقيقة ما لم نراه ربما حتى في التاريخ العالم أجمع. وللأسف نتذكر معناها ذكريات غريبة في الحروب العالمية، ولكن اليوم الذي تتعرض له غزة وكامل فلسطين هو من أبشع أنواع الحروب والجرائم ضد الإنسانية والإبادة الجماعية لشعب أعزل يدافع عن حقه وعن أرضه ويدافع من أجل العيش. اليوم من خلال هذه الندوة سنلقي الضوء كذلك على القانون الدولي المنظم كما قلت لمثل هذه الحالات والوضعيات وللشعوب تحت الحصار وتحت الحرب والشعوب المحتلة كذلك. وهذا من منظور القانون الدولي أكيد الأساتذة اللي مش يحضروا مش يزيدوا يوضحوه، ولكن نحن في المحاماة نؤكد على أن كل هذه المبادرات هي تدخل في إطار القانون ومن حق المجتمع الدولي الإنساني الآن. لأني أنا الحقيقة شخصيا أعتبر أن المجتمع الدولي كدول لم يكن مهما كانت محاولات بعض الدول ومهما كانت معناها حتى الاعترافات الأخيرة بدولة فلسطين اللي نحيوها وندعموها، ولكن هذه المواقف نعتبرها مواقف يعني أقل ما يقال فيها ضعيفة إن لم نقل أكثر. والبعض للأسف حتى المواقف العربية والإسلامية مخزية، ومن الضروري التصريح بهذا لأنه لابد أنه اليوم تستفيق هذه الدول. ولكن الحمد لله أن هناك استفاقة الآن في العالم من خلال المجتمع الدولي الإنساني الذي تمثلون أنتم اليوم جزءا منه، وهذا ما يهمنا أكثر، لأنه في الأخير الدول ستركع تحت يعني نضالات وأصوات حرة في كامل أنحاء العالم تدعم الحق الفلسطيني وتدعم كسر الحصار وتدعم إقامة دولة فلسطين. وهذا ما نعمل عليه من أجل تكريسه ومن أجل أن يستمر. فالمبادرة مهمة، ولكن لا يكفي أن نقوم بمبادرة واحدة، فالاستمرارية والتواصل بمثل هذه المبادرات في كامل أنحاء العالم هي التي ستجعل النجاح حليفنا، لأنها مؤثرة ومؤثرة جدا. وعكس ما يقول البعض فإنه مثل هذه الندوات لها قيمة كبرى ولها مكانة كبيرة ولها نتائج هامة على جميع المستويات. ونحن كما قلت سعداء باستقبال عديد الخبراء في القانون الدولي والأساتذة والمحامين المختصين، وكذلك سعداء بأنه مش تكون معنا فيما بعد السيدة فرانشيسكا البناز المقرة الأممية للحالة في فلسطين الإنسانية في فلسطين. وهذا شرف كبير أنه ستقوم بمداخلة فيما بعد وتدلي بدلوها في هذا الجانب وتؤطر المسألة من ناحية القانون الدولي. مهما كان ومهما كان فشل هذا المنتظم الأممي بين ظفرين، ومهما كان فشل هذه المنظومة الدولية، فنحن نواصل العمل على أن تستفيق كما قلت هذه الدول وهذه الأمم والمنظمات. واليوم لابد من السعي والمطالبة بشدة في تطبيق القانون الدولي، وخاصة القرارات الدولية والأحكام الصادرة عن محكمة العدل الدولية وعن المحكمة الجنائية الدولية طبعا. فالحقيقة لست اليوم سأتحدث فقط كعميد للهيئة الوطنية للمحامين، لكن شرف كبير أنه احنا في تونس مجتمع مدني الكل وتنسيقية المجتمع المدني الداعمة للحق الفلسطيني أنه اليوم تستقبلكم في تونس وتدعم أسطول الصمود الذي سينطلق في الأيام. هو كان مبرمج ليوم الغد، ولكن المنظمين فيما بعد سيتولون توضيح المسألة، ربما بعض المسائل التنظيمية وحتى الطقس وغيره يتحكم في هذه المسائل. فإن شاء الله انطلاق هذا الأسطول من تونس سيكون في الأيام القليلة القادمة، ربما يوم السبت، ولكن إن شاء الله التأكيد يكون من المنظمين والأخوة نواف. والحقيقة نحن سعداء جدا باحتضان هذا اللقاء، والأكيد أن اليوم هذه الرسالة ستصل إلى العالم أجمع، ولكن الأهم أن تصل إلى أخوتنا في فلسطين وفي غزة. لن نترككم ونحن معكم، ونحن سنعمل كل ما أوتينا من جهد كمجتمع إنساني دولي من أجل كسر هذا الحصار الغاشم الظالم عليكم، ومن أجل رفع هذه المظلمة كذلك وإيقاف الحرب، حرب الإبادة على أهالينا التي لم تترك لا بشر ولا حجر ولا نبات، نساء، أطفال، شيوخ، يعني شيء مؤلم للقلب ولكل ضمير حي. والحقيقة أنه الضمير الدولي الإنساني استفاق، وتونس الخضراء ترحب بكم وستواصل دعمها الثابت للقضية الفلسطينية. حقيقة الموقف التونسي كان دائما تاريخيا موقف ثابت، سواء على المستوى الرسمي حكومة وشعبا كذلك، أو كذلك على المستوى الشعبي والأهلي والمجتمع المدني، كان دائما موقف ثابت في دعم القضية الفلسطينية، في دعم الحق الفلسطيني، في دعم تحرير الأرض المغتصبة لفلسطين. مرحبا بكم. سنواصل العمل من أجل رفع حتى هذا مستوى هذه المواقف في تونس وفي غيرها من الدول، من أجل الاعتراف بدولة فلسطين، من أجل إيقاف الحرب على أهالينا في غزة، ومن أجل متابعة وملاحقة كل مجرمي الحرب الصهاينة الذين ارتكبوا أبشع جرائم الحرب في حق إخوتنا وأهالينا في فلسطين. شكرا لكم والسلام عليكم.
Thank you for these incredible words. Next, we're going to hear from Wael Nauer, who is a member of the steering committee in the Global SUMUD FLOTILLA.
مرحبا بكم الناس الكل، مرحبا بضيوفنا من كل أنحاء العالم. هذه الندوة هي ندوة أكاديمية مختصة في القانون، الحق ليست من اختصاصي. أنا أتحدث كعضو هيئة التسيير العالمية للأسطول وعضو تنسيقية العمل المشترك طبعا في تونس، لأعطيكم أهم التفاصيل وآخر المعطيات حول أسطول الصمود العالمي. وقبل ذلك أريد أن أشكر بشكل خاص السيد سمير الشرفي ممثل الاتحاد العام التونسي للشغل والسيدة عميد المحامين. ونحن نفخر بأن المنظمات الوطنية في تونس رغم ضغط الممولين مثل ما يحدث في كل أنحاء العالم لكي يتخلوا عن القضية الفلسطينية، إلا أن منظماتنا الوطنية في تونس تعتبر القضية الفلسطينية شيء لا يجب أن ولا يتم المساومة عليه وعلى المواقف الخاصة بالحق الفلسطيني. ولقد كان معنا الاتحاد العام التونسي للشغل وعمادة المحامين وكل المنظمات الوطنية من المجتمع المدني في تونس في قافلة الصمود، والآن في أسطول الصمود العالمي، وقبلها في كل التحركات الداعمة للحق الفلسطيني. وهذا أمر مهم لأنه الموقف الشعبي يجب أن يكون دائما هو الأصل، فالحكومات تذهب وتجيء وما يبقى ولا يتغير هو الموقف الشعبي والموقف المنظمات الوطنية. وهذا نحن نفخر به جيدا في تونس. اليوم في أسطول الصمود العالمي الجهة التونسية المنظمة تضم الجميع دون استثناء مهما كان الموقف في القضايا المحلية والتي نختلف عليها، ولكن نحن لا نختلف أبدا على الحق الفلسطيني وعلى القضية الفلسطينية. ولذلك تنسيقية العمل المشترك من أجل فلسطين وأسطول الصمود يضم كل الطيف التونسي السياسي والفكري والمدني والوطني معا من أجل كسر الحصار على غزة. في الحقيقة هي ندوة قانونية، ولكن أنا أتحدث شخصيا وباسم تنسيقية العمل المشترك من أجل فلسطين. أعتقد أن القانون لا يسوى شيء إذا لم يطبق على الجميع. القانون جعل إما ليطبق على الجميع ويحترمه الجميع، ولكن لو كان القانون امتيازا يطبق على جهة ولا يطبق على جهة، يطبق على فرد ولا يطبق على فرد، يطبق على شعب ولا يطبق على شعب، يطبق على دولة ولا يطبق على دولة، فهو لا يسوى شيء. وللأسف فإن اليوم القانون الدولي والقوانين أمام أنظار كل العالم من غير رجال القانون لا يسوى شيء، والمجتمع الدولي لا يسوى شيء. فإذا كانت تتم إبادة في أمام أنظار كل العالم وأمام أنظار كل المحاكم وأمام أنظار كل الحكومات، ولا يوجد يوجد قوانين، ولكن لا يوجد من يفرض استعمال هذه القوانين، فذلك إشكال كبير. اليوم هناك بطاقات يعني جلب في عدد من القادة الصهيونيين، من يطبقها؟ لا أحد. اليوم هناك قرارات أممية لإيقاف الحصار، من يطبقها؟ لا أحد. ماذا يسوى هذا القانون؟ ففي الواقع من هذه الفكرة، من هنا جاءت فكرة قافلة الصمود وجاءت فكرة أسطول الصمود، وتقاطعنا في هذه الفكرة نحن كقافلة الصمود المغاربي التي أصبحت أسطول الصمود المغاربي. تقاطعنا في هذه الفكرة مع أصدقائنا في الجلوبال موفمنت غزة، وأصدقائنا في الناشطين في أسطول الحرية، وأصدقائنا في صمود نصنطارة على هذه النقطة بالذات، وهي ما دام هناك فشل للحكومات، ما دام هناك فشل للمجتمع المدني والهيئات الدولية في تطبيق القانون وليس في وضع القانون، فيجب على الشعوب أن تتحمل مسؤوليتها. ولذلك اليوم إذا كانت كل حكومات العالم، أو فلأقل أغلب حكومات العالم، متورطة بشكل أو بآخر في الإبادة الجماعية بين صاحب الإبادة الجماعية وبين المشارك في الإبادة الجماعية وبين المتواطئ في الإبادة الجماعية وبين الصامت في الإبادة الجماعية وبين الذي يرفع شعارات ولا يدخل قارورة ماء إلى فلسطين، بين كل هؤلاء المتكالبون جميعا على الإبادة، نحن نقوم بنفس الشيء. نجمع كل الشعوب من كل العالم لنقول أن هذه الحكومات لا تمثل مواقف شعوبها، وأن كل الشعوب من كل العالم ستذهب بكسر الحصار على غزة، وليس مجرد ناشطين معزولين أقليين. كلا، شفتم الخروج في إسبانيا، الخروج في إسبانيا كان خروج بالآلاف، والخروج في إيطاليا رغم أنه لم يتم وصار خروج رمزي يوم 31 كان بالآلاف، والخروج من تونس سيكون بعشرات الآلاف. وهذا للقول أن هذه السفن لا تحمل ناشطين معزولين لديهم موقف خاص، بل يعبرون عن موقف أغلبية شعوب العالم. أغلبية شعوب العالم اليوم تريد كسر الحصار، تريد وقف الإبادة، تريد الاعتراف بفلسطين حرة وسيدة على أراضيها من البحر إلى النهر. وهذه الرسالة التي اجتمع عليها أسطول الصمود العالمي. طبعا أسطول الصمود يحتاج بقوة أن لا يكون معزولا قانونيا ولا دوليا، ولذلك فرغم استياء الشعبي الكبير من الأمم المتحدة ومن مجلس الأمن ومن كل هذا العجز، إلا أننا نتشرف بالمناضلين والمناضلات من الذين يشتغلون في هذه المؤسسات، وعلى رأسهم السيدة فرانشيسكا ألبانيز، والتي رشحتها منظماتنا الوطنية كاتحاد الشغل والمحامين والصحفيين لنيل جائزة نوبل. وأريد أن أقدم تحية للسيدة فرانشيسكا ألبانيز ونقول لها أنت صديقة تونس ما دمت صديقة فلسطين. ونحن نريد للمجتمع الدولي وللأونروا ولكل من بقي لديه ضمير داخل المؤسسات الدولية أن يكون مع أسطول الصمود في الوضوح ودون مواربة. فنحن في الحقيقة نعتبر نحن القوة المادية لهذه المؤسسات الدولية التي تخرج بقرارات نظرية بكسر الحصار. فإذا كانت الدول لا تمارس هذا القانون، نحن سنمارس كسر الحصار. مهمة صادقت عليها الأمم المتحدة وصادقت عليها كل الدول، لم ينفذها أحد، نحن سننفذها. ولذلك من واجب المجتمع الدولي والمؤسسات الدولية أن تعلن في الوضوح عن دعمها لهذا الأسطول الذي ينفذ قراراتها والذي يقوم بعمل إنساني يعني لا جدال فيه. في النهاية نحن عمل مدني، كلنا تلقى تدريبات لكي يمكن له أن يتحكم في ردود أفعاله، أنه حتى لو تعرضنا للاستفزاز، حتى لو تعرضنا إلى المضايقة، حتى لو تعرضنا إلى القمع، سنكون ونصر أن نكون حركة مدنية سلمية إلى النهاية، لكي لا يتم تشويه هذه الحركة ولا يتم وصمها، لأن الكيان الصهيوني ومن وراء الشركاء لا يقدرون إلا على التشويه، ومن ضمن التشويهات هو محاولة ربط أسطولنا بالعنف. نحن نحمل سلاح واحد معنا في السفن، سلاح واحد: حليب للأطفال، أدوية للمرضى، ودقيق لصنع الخبز لأهالينا في غزة الذين لا يجدوا ما يأكلون. هذه الأسلحة الوحيدة التي نحملها، وهذا ما سنحمله مع ضمائرنا ومع ضمائر كل شعوب العالم. أتمنى لندوتكم القانونية النجاح، وشكرا، ونحن على ذمتكم في أي شيء.
Thank you very much for those incredibly powerful words. If we can now welcome Melanie Schweizer to speak to us. Melanie is a lawyer and another member of the steering committee in the Global SUMUD Flotilla.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to say thank you all very, very much for organizing this panel. Thank you to the president of the Tunisian Bar Association. It's truly an honor to be here, and we are very, very happy. Thank you for giving us the space, for making this event possible. This is possibly one of the most important events of our mission. My name is Melanie Schweizer. I'm a lawyer from Germany, and I'm a member of the steering committee of the Global SUMUD Flotilla. I'm proud to be here also with Wael together to have some opening remarks about this very important panel today. First of all, I want to just underline also the importance a little bit more about this event that we are having today, the legal panel, and all these amazing people that have agreed to come here, that have offered their words, and especially Mr. Hattem, also what you said, were very important words, to hear this also from lawyers. We are in a stage of genocide. It is not just a genocide, it is a global, collective, colonial genocide. It has been going on for almost 2 years. And I think genocide doesn't really comprehend anymore what we are seeing on a daily basis. I think also it doesn't make much sense or logic to compare atrocities, but what we are seeing is something, as Mr. Hattem was saying, is unprecedented. We have never experienced this scale of violence in our lifetimes. We have of ruthlessness, of sadism, that we are seeing on a daily basis, and it's taking a toll on all of us. It's taking a moral injury, and we are here for exactly that reason. I just want to also say briefly, as being a lawyer from Germany, lawyers in these times are especially asked because they know the international laws and regulations that we are having, and an event like this would not be possible in Germany. That is for the reason of state repression, but it's also for the reason of the lack of support from the society. And the society also, this includes lawyers and judges. And that's why I'm especially very happy to hear these words also, because we can see here that the so-called Global South is leading us at this dire moment of time in humanity, that the so-called Western states, that they have failed completely, that we see now that they don't have the moral high ground anymore, because what they are doing is beyond comprehension. We cannot stand for this. And me saying this coming from Germany now, being in Tunis, it's for us a safe haven to be here, because we are persecuted in our own countries, and we cannot understand what our governments are doing, and that includes also the legal personnel. We have few people in Germany who are very supportive, and all over Europe we are also finding each other and doing the same. What we are doing here, creating this international solidarity and coordination to fight this international global colonial racist genocide. We are doing this within our networks and legal networks all over Europe and the world, basically. But just to stress this importance, then I want to say, why are we having this mission? Because as a member of the steering committee of the Global
نقول أن هذا الأسطول هو أكبر أسطول إنساني يتوجه إلى غزة. لم يقع ذلك من قبل. بالطبع نحن نرى كل هذه المجازر والفظائع المرتكبة في فلسطين كل يوم، وهذا الأمر ينفيه الكثيرون، مع أننا نراه رؤية العين. القادة الغربيون حقا يتجاهلون ذلك الأمر وينفونه. والأمر
sun is shining, right? And the press also is doing that. Instead of going outside and looking at the weather, they are multiplying basically lies and propaganda. And we as a mission, we are here to set the record straight, to say that what is happening is not in our name, that our governments do not represent us, and that our governments have failed. They have failed. They have failed to live up to their responsibility, to their legal, political, and moral responsibility. And just as being a German, I want to stress this point especially, because coming from the country that has committed the Holocaust and that has sworn to the world that never again, we're sitting here again, and Germany is again on the side that is taking part in genocide. And that's why also Germany is accused in front of the International Court of Justice for aiding and abetting to genocide, just as is Israel. So we heard 2 days ago that the Genocide Scholar Association almost unanimously declared that this is by no doubt this is a genocide, and there's basically no way out of this anymore, but still our governments refuse to take the necessary steps. That's why we are here. We have all come our way in different paths. So I am from originally the movement to Gaza that went to fly into Cairo to try to march to Rafah. Then Wael is with the SUMUD convoy that made their way here from Tunisia towards Egypt. And then we have organizers from the Freedom Flotilla, and now we have also the Asian movement, the Nusantara movement that is with us, with Nadir, and we're very pleased and very happy about this. We have come together because we realize that our national endeavors that we are doing to pressure our governments are fruitless because our governments are not listening to us. So we have to organize, and we have to remind ourselves that no oppressive, violent system in the past, that we have experienced many of them, that they stopped their violence just out of their own mercy. They stopped because the people, there was an uproar. People were rising, and people were demanding in the hundreds, in the thousands, in the millions. We know this from Mahatma Gandhi, from Nelson Mandela, from Rosa Parks, from the apartheid system in South Africa, in the United States, from the colonial system in Algeria. That it wasn't ended because the governments thought from one day to the other that they would do the right thing now. And it's just like that here. It will not end if we don't put pressure, increase our pressure, and do not escalate our endeavors as well. So this mission is here not only, to bring humanitarian aid. That is, of course, our first and foremost and most important goal. And just as being a lawyer, to put this straight, this is not aid. This is the basic minimum that the Palestinian people have a right to. So this is not a favor. This is what they are entitled to, and what they are being denied, of course, by the Zionist state of Israel, but also by the world. And then, of course, we want to create a humanitarian corridor. We want to make sure that the fleets keep coming. And this is the one part of this mission. But the other part is that we want to carry a lesson of international law. This mission is not just here to bring these basic things, because, of course, as you all know, we are a civilian endeavor that is not supported by any government or by any politicians. So what we bring is only a drop in the ocean on the side of the factual, the food and medicine that we can bring, and the doctors that we carry. But what we are doing is we put our bodies on the line, because we are saying no more of this, and we are calling out on our governments to finally abide by international law, to respect the rules that they have created. They expect us to abide by the law, and we expect them to abide by the law. And that we are embarking on these waters, this is completely 180% and 200% within the merits of the law. It's our legal right to embark on these ships. It is our legal right to embark on international waters. It is our legal right to actually stop at the ports of Gaza. And I think I want to make this very, very clear, because it's very important for our narrative on this journey, because we will be attacked by information war and by defamation war. Israel has no legal right to be in Palestine at all. They don't have a right to be in the Gaza Strip or in the West Bank. They must leave there. And also, of course, all these illegal terrorist colonies, they need to leave as well. But the important point, and that is also clear by the International Court of Justice with their advisory opinion from July 2024, that Israel has to leave immediately and that all of this is illegal. So the presence there is illegal. And if they claim that they can catch us in the Palestinian waters, they cannot, because they don't have legal authority there. And we have the authority. We have the San Remo handbook in our bag. We have the humanitarian agreements. Humanitarian organizations, they are under international law not allowed to be hindered to carry and to bring humanitarian law. To hinder this is a war crime. It is also a war crime to embark on these ships and vessels and to intercept us. That's an act of piracy. And I just want to set the record straight here, because this is very important. We have, with everything that we have been doing, walked within the lines of international law, and our governments, they are obliged to protect us, to shield us, and to go along with diplomatic pressure, and if need be, to send their own fleets. The NATO is in these waters, and they must make sure that we can execute on our civil, legal, international rights. And this is going to be a moment of truth for every government to see. And just in a very brief last message, the governments, they are not doing this by their own will, as we have already understood. So we need the public, we need the civil society at home. The civil society, the legal associations, the lawyers, the people of this world, you are the wings, the waves, and the wind that are carrying our mission. And you are the protection shield. And we need you for this, because if not, then we will delve into a world where we will have accepted and normalized genocide. And this is not going to stop at the borders of Palestine. This is coming to us as well. This is going to be, we will enter into very dark times, and this is unacceptable for all of us. So with this, I want to leave it here. Thank you all so much for organizing this. And it's a very, very dire moment. I just also, the very last message, last night, 150 Palestinians have been killed. They have been either bombed or killed by this humanitarian violence, as Mr. Hatem was saying, starved to death. This is 150 people in 24 hours. In our Western newspapers, there was not a single headline of that. There's not even reporting on that. So this is being normalized. In no place in the world this would be normalized like that. And we are here to say it's enough. And we will do whatever is possible, and we will break the mental walls of having this feeling of apathy, and that this is not our obligation. Genocide is called a crime against humanity because it affects us all. That's why it's a crime against humanity, and all of humanity has to stand up now.
Thank you very much, Melanie. And last but not least, in our line of opening speeches is Najat Darish, who is a lawyer and a member of the Tunis Bar Association. Thank you.
مرحبا بكم الكل في تونس، مرحبا بكم في وطني العزيز. نحن هنا جميعا تقريبا لنقول أن غزة لن تموت. غزة لن تموت، لأننا نرفض أن تموت إنسانيتنا. إذا ماتت غزة لقد تموت فينا إنسانيتنا جميعا دون استثناء. وأسطول الصمود العالمي، هذه الحركة التي يقودها عديد من النشطاء، هي بالضبط محور هذا الرفض لهذه الإبادة القائمة. نجتمع اليوم إعلاميين وسياسيين وأكاديميين وأساتذة ونشطاء لنقول مرة أخرى نحن لن نصمت عن إبادة تمر على مرأى من الجميع في صمت حكومي ودولي كامل. نحن لأننا نرفض الضرب بعرض الحائط القانون الدولي، نجتمع لنقوم بمهمة سلمية أساسها القانوني واضح سيقوم بتفسيره جميع الأساتذة الأكاديميين الموجودين معنا هنا. أساسها القانوني واضح باتفاقيات جنيف الرابعة بفصلها 23.55 الذي يفرض على الدولة القائمة بقوة الاحتلال بمد كل المساعدات الإنسانية للمدنيين للشعب المحتل. نحن هنا أيضا بحماية من بحماية من دليل سان غيمو بفصله 102 و110 الذي يعتبر أن الحصار البحري على السكان المدنيين تعتبر جريمة ويعتبر انتهاك للقانون الدولي. نجتمع اليوم جميعنا كما ذكرت نشطاء إعلاميين سياسيين أكاديميين لنقدم هذا التأطير القانوني ولنقول أن أسطول الصمود العالمي يقوم بمهمة إنسانية أساسها وهدفها الأساسي هو فتح ممر إنساني لإنقاذ الشعب الفلسطيني في غزة ولرفض هذا الحصار ولرفض هذه الإبادة. ولنقول أيضا أن كل أي اعتراض للسفن البحرية بالمياه قبالة غزة هو عمل يندرج في القرصنة البحرية وعمل غير قانوني وهو انتهاك لكل أعراف القوانين الدولية. إذا لن أطيل كثيرا لأننا تأخرنا في الوقت، لكنني أقدم فقط كلمة ترحيبية بكل السادة الأكاديميين الموجودين هون. مرحبا بكم سندا لهذه المبادرة وسندا للأسطول العالمي لكسر الحصار على غزة في تونس. مرحبا بكم.
Thank you very much. And now presenting on the legal memorandum for the Global SUMUD Flotilla is Hussein Jizli, who is the Vice President of WOLAS, or the Worldwide Association of Lawyers. Thank you.
I'm a very clumsy person, as proven. Yeah. Good. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Hussein Dishli, Vice President of WOLAS. Thank you for joining us today on the eve of Global SUMUD Flotilla's departure from Tunis. The flotilla is a civilian mission, the largest of its kind since the siege began in 2007. And this flotilla will see dozens of vessels from over 40 countries sail to break the illegal blockade on Gaza and deliver urgently needed and life-saving humanitarian aid. As well as together with Global SUMUD Flotilla, Gaza Tribunal, and National Bar Association of Tunis, we organized this symposium to examine the legality of this action, the illegality of the Israeli blockade, and responsibilities of the states, protected status of the vessels and passengers sailing in the face of ongoing Israeli genocide committed against Palestinian people in Gaza. We gather not just to speak law, but to stand with those who sail for justice. I speak today on behalf of WOLAS, a global network of lawyers and legal academics based in Istanbul, working to expose and challenge injustice wherever it hides. This humanitarian mission of Global SUMUD Flotilla is a continuation of the global will to deliver humanitarian aid to people of Gaza by challenging the unlawful Israeli blockade. Since 2007, several missions has been conducted. Dozens of UN reporters has stated for the flotilla mission of 2020 is also at stake for this mission. I quote, "The flotilla is a material manifestation of international support for the ongoing Palestinian struggle for freedom and self-determination, and the internationally recognized right to receive humanitarian aid without interference or hindrance." Quote end from UN reporters. Just like the previous flotillas, this flotilla's demands are very clear: immediate and unconditional and permanent ceasefire, unrestricted access to humanitarian aid, and an end to illegal blockade of the Gaza Strip. In March 2024, the International Court of Justice, through binding provisional measures, determined that the killings, displacements, conditions of the famine and starvation in Gaza amounted to a plausible risk of genocide. Under the Genocide Convention, and accordingly, the court issued strict provisional measures against Israel in January, March, and May. In November 2024, International Criminal Court, ICC, issued an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu for the war crime of starvation as a method of warfare as well. But after that, and just like before that, these decisions didn't change anything, yet Israel brazenly escalated its criminal policies by declaring numerous times a complete ban on the entry of all goods into the Gaza Strip. An unambiguous act of collective punishment and flagrant repudiation of binding international legal obligations, carried out in an open defiance of ICJ's authoritative orders and ICC's prosecutional mandate. What's worse, Israel doesn't only use starvation as a method of warfare, but also using humanitarian aid as a method of warfare. As all of you know, the so-called humanitarian aid mechanism imposed by Israel and US, so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, is a death trap. One that instrumentalizes aid, instrumentalize aid to displace, humiliate, and confine the civilians. It's obvious that international law is currently failing and has historically failed. Palestinians historically failed Palestinians since 1948. The ongoing Israeli genocide in Gaza, 77 years of ongoing Nakba, 77 years of incremental genocide, 77 years of apartheid, dispossession, and denial of basic rights and freedoms. Gaza took off the masks and shown us a very well-known truth by some of us, by probably all of us in this room. Today, international law can no longer be seen as merely a discipline that addresses the crisis. It has itself become a discipline in crisis, as a respected scholar, Nitina Tzovola, wrote in one of his recent articles. Therefore, when we reflect on international law, we must not only approach to law as a mechanism for resolving and regulating disputes and crises, but also examine it critically, its roles as a producer and perpetrator of this very crisis. The genocide in Gaza also cannot be decontextualized from the systematic oppression endured by the Palestinian people since the Nakba. It's rooted in a broader history of colonialism. The colonial domination and alien subjugation that Palestinians are exposed to is not an isolated event, but part of a continuum that reflects the persistent influence of colonial structures on contemporary international law. Gaza has shown us very clear that there is an urgent need to dismantle the colonial structures and mechanisms born of them. This includes challenging the so-called universality of international law, which often masks Eurocentric and state-centric biases that marginalize non-Western perspectives or global South perspectives. The genocide in Gaza has exposed the limitations of this universal so-called legal order, particularly in its failure to protect colonized people. It has underscored the urgent need to rethink international law, particularly in the context of decolonization and right to self-determination in the sense of full sovereignty over the sea, land, and air, as well as societal catharsis. Even today, almost 2 years into genocides, states are failing to meet their binding obligations under international law to prevent, halt, suppress, and punish genocide, and also the starvation imposed by Israel in Gaza. States are today aggressively policing refugee movements, yet they didn't show 1% of this effort to police genocide. Instead, many states still supply Israel with weapons, resources, and political cover, conduct that may amount to complicity in international crimes, including genocide. In response to this failure of state responsibility, civilians such as those participating in this flotilla are engaging in a lawful direct action to safeguard and realize Palestinian people's fundamental entitlements under international law. It is in this legal and political vacuum created by the states and actors who has capacity and responsibility to prevent happening of this grim picture before us today. It is this vacuum that when it is the familiar motto of the previous missions, when states fail, we sail. That's exactly, that's a very good definition of the vacuum that is the motivation behind this very mission as well. I've been serving Freedom Flotilla Coalition as a legal advisor since 2024. In every mission or our attempt for sailing, Israel did everything to sabotage the mission, tried to scare away the flotilla participants, failed. Then launch all kind of bureaucratic warfare to stop flotilla vessels before sailing. Israel utilized its influence over incumbent or potential flag countries, port countries, since April 2024, waged threats on them, but only on them, not only on them, but also authorities registering vessels class, insurance, etc. A number of times, flotilla flags has been withdrawn by flag states, and some of ships were with 800 to 1,000 passenger capacity. That particular ship, Akdeniz, sadly, is still waiting to obtain a flag from a country willing to grant it. A number of times, as I said, eventually with the conscious ship, failing to stop it before sailing, Israel directly attacked the ship, endangering the lives of passengers around 2 nautical miles to Malta. When all this happened, we announced that we will sail sooner than sabotagers are expecting. And now we are sailing as Global SUMUD Flotilla in an unprecedented manner. We sailed, we are sailing, and we will be sailing until Palestine is free and fully sovereign over its land, aerial space, and sea. I know this was a little bit of a detour. I was supposed to present the legal memorandum, but I thought suffocating the whole room with legal technicalities, which is characteristic to law, the law that Franz Kafka himself making you feel like chewing a sawdust. So I wanted to save you from that as much as possible. I'm sure I did you a favor. So instead of presenting the legal memorandum from beginning to end, which we have written with my respected colleagues, and the reports will be soon, memorandum will be out soon in the Global SUMUD Flotilla website. So for the scholars and lawyers and all the passengers, it's always there as a reference. Instead of that, I would like to just present the central arguments and the critical points in the legal memorandum. Of course, the legal memorandum is for and foremost answer the question of why this mission is lawful under international law. And in order to do so, since the very phenomenon of blockade justifies this vision, the memorandum starts with analyzing the illegality of Israeli naval blockade over Gaza, which is exercised since 2007. Israel's naval blockade imposed on Gaza since 2007 is unlawful. I don't want to give premises, but it's just, this is not very orderly premises, but for my mind organization, forgive me, I need to articulate. Argument one, the vessels, as you know, are primarily subjected to jurisdiction of their respective flag states. Potential interception of these vessels by any state on high seas amount to violation of the sovereignty of the flag states and unlawful use of force under international law. We have witnessed this with the recent Medellin and Handala attacks. Since there are criminal filings in the UK, hopefully they will be prosecuted properly on these crimes, since it is the extension of UK territory, since the ships were carrying UK flag. Since the one of the accepted arguments in armed conflict in the sea is that naval blockade applies to international law, international armed conflict. And in order something to be international armed conflict, it should be between states. Given that Israel doesn't recognize Palestine as a state, I am now just actually deconstructing Israeli argument. Israel doesn't recognize Palestine as a state, yet claiming for naval blockade. Of course, it doesn't matter if Israel recognized Palestine as a state or not in order for international law to characterize a blockade legal or not. But here is the thing, from Israel's viewpoint, the very category of blockade non-existent, because not recognizing Palestine, at least it is incoherent with itself. This is not one of our central arguments. I just wanted to start with an awkward Israeli position. For your information, in the Turkel report, which was written by Israeli commission right after Mavi Marmara attack, which was, if I'm not wrong, 4 volumes, the whole argument was, despite we don't recognize Palestine as a state, why naval blockade applies. They were trying to create this exceptionalism and trying to argue that, well, that ship sailed, now the nature of armed conflicts changed, so it should be a thing, and there is a so-called significant state practice about prize issues in the sea, and in last 100 years only there are 3 state practice, and one of it is Israel. So it's also tautologic to justify something with state practice by your very own state practices. This is just one thing. So we started with the total awkwardness, and I wanted to start with invalidating that. So if you ever talk to an Israeli legal scholar doing maritime law, the main argumentation will be around this. And in this case, when blockade is not a category, applicable legal framework will shifts to the law of the sea. Argument 2, now setting aside the nature of the armed conflict in the sea, it is still, Israel insisting on exercising naval blockade is still fallacious and basis under international law, because Palestine, as acknowledged 2 times in the Wall Advisor Opinion and 2024 19 of July Advisor Opinion, Gaza is occupied. Palestinian people has a right to self-determination, and customary international law prohibits all forcible measures against people's self-determination. Consequently, Israel's sustained enforcement of control over land, sea, and air in Gaza using forcible means constitutes a continuous breach of international law. That's why, since the framing of the questions to ICJ for the advisory opinion in 2024 wasn't particularly about the naval blockade, of course, in the analysis, in the advisory opinion, naval blockade wasn't engaged in. But if it was, what we have in the advisory opinion is enough to extend the argument that advisory opinion by extension acknowledged the blockade as illegal. Because, as I said, international law prohibits all forcible measures against self-determination, people's self-determination. Argument 3, now going into more technical. Interestingly, this is an argument from London, Declaration Concerning the Laws of Naval War. This is London Declaration from 1909. So following the conflict, now Gaza is occupied Israel is occupied force in Gaza, which is acknowledged by advisory opinion as well, thereby unquestionably subjecting itself to the law of occupation. As an occupying power, Israel is precluded from applying the blockades to these areas. I know this is an interesting argument because it's coming very interesting colonial place. Moreover, beyond the illegality of continuing the blockade, under these circumstances, Israel has not only obligation to permit relief schemes, but also facilitate them by all means at its disposal. Why, as an occupying power, Israel is precluded from the blockades to these areas? The Declaration Concerning Laws of Naval War, London, Article 1, actually stipulates this. Even the most colonial legal, an attempt to codify the customary international law states this because the focus wasn't really about settler colonial context like Israel. The focus more like by codifying the naval warfare law, in fact, actually it operates as a judicial instrument of imperial consolidation, a technocratic veil for securing Euro-Atlantic maritime hegemony. By the time there were colonized regions and there were colonizers, but for the supply to go on, there was huge need for neutral states. And arbitrarily intercepting the ships of these neutral states was harming the very colonialism and capitalism. So in order to secure a stability to capitalism, in London Conference, the colonial powers stipulated that in order to protect the supply chain, if you're occupying a land, you don't need to apply a naval blockade because it's absurd, you're already on the land. So this was more like protecting the maritime mobility. Of course, the London Declaration is not the central legal reference. It is more like Sandra Memorial. We will come to that. Okay. So do you need to go or shall I just wrap up? Okay, I'll wrap up. Okay. I still have 20 pages, but yeah. No, just joking. Okay. I'll be quick and then we'll be in more basic terms and only will go technically when it's needed in the last 5 minutes. Under international humanitarian law, as we know, and the law of sea, naval blockade is prohibited if it inflicts disproportionate harm on civilians. It has the purpose or effect of starvation of civilian population. If it prevents access to humanitarian relief. This is San Remo Manual on International Law, Articles 102. This is, of course, a restatement of customary international law. And Fourth Geneva Convention, to which Israel is a party, whether it's a customary law or convention, doesn't matter, Israel is a party, prohibits collective punishment, and additional Protocol 1 forbids starvation of civilians as a method of warfare. So the very practice of starvation as a method of warfare invalidates the naval blockade as stipulated in Sanremo Manual. Thus, the relevant legal body to apply, legal framework to apply to our situation is not IHL or armed conflict, it is human rights law. We are civilians, this is a peaceful mission, and the mission's main aim is to provision of humanitarian aid to Gaza, which was already in the provisional measures of the ICJ. So Israel's unlawful blockade has been condemned also various times by UN bodies and experts. I'm not gonna go deep into law of the sea, but in brief terms, our mission has a right to freedom of navigation because it falls under none of the exceptions in UNCLOS 110, such as piracy and smuggling, or carrying the same flag as the belligerent party, or unlawful broadcasting. None of it applies to us. Thus, our mission has a right to freedom of navigation. Secondly, since it is neutral to any state on the route of our journey, since it's a neutral and non-political to the coast states that we are passing through, the mission itself has also right to innocent passage. And thirdly, we have a right to humanitarian passage. I'm sure Luigi will actually go deep on that. That's why I leave it here in terms of law of the sea. And in short, why this mission is lawful? The blockade is illegal. Therefore, any use of force by Israel to enforce it is also unlawful. Breaching such a blockade or challenging to deliver humanitarian aid in itself a lawful act. The mission is humanitarian, carrying aid, no arms. It respects navigation law, exercising freedom of navigation and innocent passage rights. And while there's no UNCLOS exceptions, participants are protected civilians as well, even given the interception if they are abducted by Israel under Geneva Conventions. So they have to be treated humanly, and Israel should refrain from mistreatment or degrading treatment. Okay, now I conclude with what is going to happen if the ships are intercepted. First of all, there is flag state obligations and the flotilla is sailing under a number of countries' flags, and they have sovereignty responsibilities and mechanisms against Israel. Secondly, home state protection. Every citizenship is Israel needs to allow all the legal visits and consular visits and legal support to passengers by the relevant consular authorities under Vienna Convention, Consular Relations, Article 36. Universal jurisdictions, any war crimes against humanity or genocide, any action falls under this, can be prosecuted in many countries around the world. And international accountability, we are already preparing an ICC file about Conscious, Medellin, and Handala attacks. If these ships are intercepted, this will be in the same application to ICC, and we will make sure that our filing will be communicated to every ICJ judges. As concluding, I would like to say that I would like you to know that we are working closely with a number of governments, and we are mobilizing legally and diplomatically. We are mobilizing the word diplomatically and legally. And the measures and legal accountability mechanism I just stated will definitely be followed. Lastly, for the passengers, we need thousands of eyes for every passenger on the ship. So their mind should be at peace. For every passenger, we will be thousands of eyes, arms, and voice. And finally, I extend my deepest salute to heroic people of Gaza. You set such a precedent that masked, or they took the mask of all the oppression and hegemony in the world. And you resisted, and you shown what resilience and resistance mean. You resisted against, and have been still resisting against a colonial subjugation and alien domination. And under this weight of devastation, you continue to unmask the hypocrisies of global political system and international law, strip bare facade of liberal humanitarianism, and inscribe a new precedent in a grammar of liberation. Your endurance is not only a defiance of injustice, it is a word historical assertion of life, dignity, and refusal. Gaza is not merely enduring, it is teaching. Assalamu ala arwah shuhada. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Now we'll be taking a 15-minute break, so you can take the time to get a coffee or water. We'll be back for our panelists in 15 minutes. Thank you very much.